excellent. This trip isn't for tuna or crab. This 150-meter steel giant is heading into deep water to hunt a single.
Each of these pots is a steel lair, built so a giant ocean octopus can flow in around bait and never quite find its way back out.
They don't cube or garnish, just whole, oily fish. Enough scent to pull a giant ocean octopus across a canyon floor.
This isn't a single trap gamble. They're building a whole street of steel rooms for a giant that could be anywhere down there.
The lights aren't there for drama. They're there so a giant ocean octopus can see the cage from across a rubble field and drift toward it.
They aim for edges, where rock caves, boulder piles, and soft-bottom hunting grounds give a giant ocean octopus everything it needs.
Before the first pot goes over, every kilo of steel becomes part of the ship. Nothing loose, nothing left to slide when the weather turns.
The first steel room leaves the deck empty. No tentacles yet. Just the idea of a giant ocean octopus out there somewhere under the hull.
Steel, rope, and light begin their descent, building a chain of possibilities on the seafloor far below.
By the time the last buoy stands upright, there's a line of steel rooms resting in silence, waiting.
At first light, all they see are masts, thin markers above a canyon where a giant ocean octopus.
That one's riding heavy. The difference between empty cages and a giant ocean octopus exploring their work is only a few centimeters of freeboard.
On bottom, the pot is just another shape, until something bigger than these scavengers glides along the rocks.
You can feel it in the rope, long, deliberate pulses that don't belong to current or small fish.
Sometimes the first sign is just a lean, a few degrees off straight that say a giant ocean octopus is shifting inside a steel frame.
On the screen, it's just a smudge, but it's a smudge too big to be anything but a giant octopus pressed against rock and cage.
We'll start there. If a giant ocean octopus touched anything, it'll be that one.
In a string this long, you choose.
It's not a myth or a monster, just an octopus scaled up. A giant ocean octopus. Something big tested that pot, maybe pushing, maybe wrapping arms around the frame, feeling for weak points. They translate hunches into coordinates, circling a point on the chart where they might be one haul away from seeing the giant. For an octopus, the world is touch first, one arm mapping every bar, every curve, to decide if this steel cave is worth entering.
You can't see the arms from up here, but you can feel their weight whenever the line answers back with that low hum.
The giant doesn't rush. Mantle settled on rock, arms inside and outside the cage. It treats the trap like just another crevice to occupy.
A 4-ton class animal doesn't make sharp moves. It leans, settles, and the buoy shows the weight in slow nods.
They know better than to meet the main event on a cluttered deck. First they clear space, then they face whatever's wrapped around that pot.
The early hauls are rehearsal, smaller octopus proving the gear works, giving the crew a rhythm before the big question mark arrives.
When there's only one buoy left leaning that hard, everyone on board knows which story they're about to read.
Size isn't fantasy here, just an octopus scaled up, 8 correctly built arms, and a beak hidden under a mass of muscle and skin.
The gentle part of the morning is over. Whatever's below that buoy will either come quietly in the cage or try to take the cage with it. Once the riser is tied into steel, the giant ocean octopus, the pot, and the ship become one system.
Down here, the giant hasn't noticed it's about to move. Comfortable in a pose it's probably held 1,000 times on different rocks.
A normal pot eases out of the mud. This one feels like it's welded to the bottom. Exactly what they'd expect with 4 tons of octopus attached.
Tight. The giant doesn't flee. It rises with its new perch, only now realizing that the cave it claimed is no longer.
Whatever is down there isn't just weight. It's moving, twisting, and trying to turn the line back into part of the seabed.
Whole start. From here on, every centimeter of line they gain brings steel and octopus closer to the open air. They treat this latch like a trigger, because once it moves, 4 tons of muscle will have one new direction to go: down. The mats define the safe zone, a rectangle of rubber that must hold all 8 arms when the cage empties.
They build a sling inside the trap, So when the giant ocean octopus spills out, something besides gravity will be holding its core.
Contact is measured in centimeters, close enough to guide the harness, never close enough to let a sucker take purchase on a boot.
They preload the sling, sharing mass between cage and crane before they ever crack the door.
Watch the swing, watch the swing!
On this move, every word matters. Misheard timing could mean a cage slammed or a giant sliding where it shouldn't.
The smallest crack is enough. The first arm finds it instantly, tasting the difference between bar and empty air.
Gravity starts to win, arms spilling out, heavy and real, no longer hidden behind steel geometry.
With the door wide, the giant becomes a single, sprawling shape, still partly caged, but already claiming most of the rubber zone.
Pot dump doesn't look like fish spilling, it looks like a living landslide. 4 tons of giant ocean octopus settling onto steel.
On open deck, scale stops being theory. Each arm is a corridor, each mantle pulse a shove you can feel through your boots. Suckers this big don't need speed. They rely on persistence, building pressure until steel or flesh has to give.
This is why they cleared the deck. One stray arm on the wrong machine could turn hardware into shrapnel.
They treat it like a moving tide line, constantly nudging the edges back in before the octopus can redraw the map.
By lifting the core, they steal leverage from the limbs, turning wild thrashing into slower, more predictable arcs.
Every scar tells you it's real. This giant ocean octopus has survived teeth, rock.
Even now, it keeps trying to turn the ship into another rock face to press against, a habit too old to break in one morning.
They let it own the mats completely, but nothing beyond that painted edge is negotiable.
Gravity does what no predator can, turning an animal built for buoyancy into something that has to fight just to move.
With the cage gone, there's no more steel between eyes and flesh, just rubber, rope, and a lot of decisions to make.
The next bed is steel and rubber, a sled that can carry what no man here could even dream of lifting. They sculpt the cradle around the shape, not the other way around. Steel adapting to biology for once.
The lift looks slow, but every centimeter feels like tons added to each arm. Proof that land was never this animal's home.
Bit by bit, the giant moves from open chaos to a defined rectangle, still massive, but finally in a form that can be stored and moved.
Deck chaos is over. Now it's processing, securing 4 tons of giant ocean octopus into a shape the cold chain can understand.
Every click of that ratchet is another step away from random movement, and closer to predictable freight.
They don't rely on myth for size. Meters and numbers replace guesses about how big a giant ocean octopus can really get.
Images become proof, so anyone who doubts the numbers can see the giant laid out on steel for themselves.
Identity shrinks to a tag, but that tag now carries everything about how, where, and when this giant ocean octopus left the canyon floor.
4,050 kilograms!
The scale doesn't care about legend, just a raw number confirming this giant is truly in the 4-ton class.
Once the extra gear is cleared away, all that's left is the core of the story. A single sled holding one enormous animal. Ocean slows to almost nothing. Life still present, but drained by time out of water and the constant drag of gravity. They cover it not to hide it, but to protect it. Canvas shielding flesh until the real coolant is ready.
Bare hands are done for the day. Now winches and rails take over, doing the slow work of moving 4 tons across the ship.
The route to ice is short but deliberate. Every bump and jolt felt by the giant as it leaves the midship stage behind.
This is where the ocean's temperature gets replaced by machinery. Crushed ice standing in for deep water cold.
With that last descent, the giant moves from catch to chilled cargo, ready for the next phase in its long trip away from the canyon.
Hậu xử lý trên bông. They don't carve or slice. They bury the giant ocean octopus in a man-made snowdrift to stop time.
Ice becomes armor, filling every space around the giant, so warm air has nowhere to land. Numbers close the loop. Catch time, weight, and now core temperature, all tied to the same code on the giant sled.
Once the lid is dogged, the giant disappears from sight. Only stamped letters on steel prove it's down there.
By the end of Hosu Lee, the deck looks almost ordinary again. No hint of the four-tone shadow sleeping under the ice.
Oops, what co? Now land-based steel joins the chain, ready to lift the giant ocean octopus straight from ship's hold to dock. They move the giant in one block, ice, flesh, and steel together, so the cold envelope never breaks. Lead and ink take over where rope and chain left off. Tiny stamped seals now guarding 4 tons of hidden biomass.
From here, tires replace hull plating, the giant ocean octopus riding a thin strip of asphalt toward a very different kind of heat.
It passes through one more waypoint, checked, logged, and kept cold, still mostly unseen by anyone but the men who put it on the deck.
By the time it leaves this yard, the giant isn't one mass anymore, just labeled crates of giant ocean octopus destined for a single restaurant door.
Here, the story changes tools, winches and cranes replaced by knives and thermometers, but the name on the crate still reads Giant Ocean Octopus.
He respects the scale in smaller bites, turning heavy, four-tone history into precise cuts that cook evenly and present cleanly. The heat here is controlled, not brutal. Care, timing, and technique replacing swells, cranes, and pot haulers.
Most of them will never smell bait or diesel in their lives, yet in every bite of giant ocean octopus, there's the ghost of wet steel and cold dawn air.
On board, the evidence is almost gone. Only clean steel and tired men, readying the ship for whatever the next deep set will bring.
The giant ocean octopus is now ice, data, and dishes, but the water stays endless.